At the charity gala, when my husband of 3 years, Julian Croft, won the bid for the $10 million Cartier diamond bracelet, I was about to rise and walk onto the stage. But his old flame, Serafina Hayes, beat me to it, fastening the bracelet onto her wrist. "Thank you all," she announced, "for witnessing our love." The man I was secretly married to gestured for me to stay silent. I spoke only one sentence, and his world came crashing down. When Serafina Hayes slipped on that priceless diamond bracelet, the applause nearly blew the roof off the grand ballroom. She stood with her arm linked through Julian's, her eyes glistening. "Thank you all for witnessing our love." Julian looked at me across the crowded room, pressing a finger to his lips in a silent command. "Don't say a word." I stood frozen by the main table, clutching the speech cards I was meant to read. The first line was written in my own hand. "In loving memory of my mother, Eleanor Vance." This bracelet was the last gift from my mother. 3 months ago, when the Vance Foundation decided to host its annual gala, I offered it as the headline auction item. Not to sell it, but to launch a new medical aid project for women in crisis. The consignment agreement was crystal clear. The winning bidder would only have rights of collection, exhibition, and charitable interpretation. The ownership remained with the Vance Foundation. More importantly, after the auction, I, the donor, was to go on stage to explain the bracelet's history and the project's purpose. But now, Serafina Hayes had stolen my moment. She wore a white satin gown, the lights casting a soft glow on her shoulders. She raised her wrist, displaying the bracelet for all to see. "Julian said this bracelet was perfect for me," she murmured, her voice soft but carried by the microphone to every corner of the room. "He said some things are delayed for many years, but they eventually find their way to the person they were meant for." Someone in the crowd yelled, "Mr. Croft, is this the big announcement? I thought you and Miss Hayes were childhood sweethearts." A $10 million bracelet. If that's not love, what is? I stared at Julian. He didn't deny it. He just stood by Serafina's side, his expression unreadable, waiting, as always, for me to swallow my own pain. The host was flustered, looking from his cue cards to me. According to the schedule, I should be on stage now. Julian Croft makes the bid, the Vance Foundation receives the donation, and I tell the story of my mother's charitable dream before announcing the project's launch. This was a night of remembrance and aid, not a press conference for his and his old flame's love story. I didn't move, because Julian's assistant was suddenly at my side, whispering, "Mrs. Croft, Julian asks that you wait. Serafina just returned to the country and she's emotionally fragile. With so many people here tonight, please, do him this one courtesy." I heard myself laugh. "Give him a courtesy?" The assistant flinched and looked away. He knew who I was. All of Julian's core staff knew. We had been married for 3 years. No wedding, no public announcement. I was just Alara Vance, the head of the Vance Foundation, the reclusive only daughter of the Vance family. Julian had proposed the secret marriage. Croft Industries was undergoing a major transition, he'd said. A public marriage would make every business deal look like a family alliance. He promised me a grand wedding once the company was stable. I believed him. For 3 years, I stabilized his board of directors, funneled my family's old connections to him, arranged his mother's private care, and covered the financial gaps for the Croft family's historic townhouse. I never demanded a public introduction. I thought, between a husband and wife, some things could wait. Until tonight. My mother's legacy was on another woman's wrist, and he was calling it his love. I placed my speech cards on the table. The host, finally recovering, said awkwardly, "Miss Hayes, the donor of this bracelet has an important message to share. Shall we first welcome the head of the Vance Foundation, Miss Alara Vance, to the stage?" Serafina's smile froze. Julian took the microphone. "We can adjust the schedule. The important thing tonight is that the donation is secured. The other details aren't crucial." He looked at me again, his eyes cool and warning. "Don't make a scene." I slipped off the wedding band from my ring finger. It was a simple, small ring engraved with our initials. I never wore it in public. I had put it on tonight because I had planned to end my speech with one final sentence. "I want to thank my husband, Julian Croft, for supporting my mother's charitable wish as the winning bidder. I had even thought that after tonight, we could slowly go public. How fortunate I hadn't said it." I walked toward the stage. The click of my heels on the steps was sharp and clear. A hush fell over the room. Julian's face darkened. I reached the host and held out my hand for the microphone. He passed it to me like a lifeline. Serafina looked at me, her eyes a mixture of feigned innocence and victorious pity. Alara, please don't misunderstand. I was just so moved. Julian said this bracelet has a special meaning. I'm sure you had no idea, I interrupted. The entire room was silent. Alara, Julian hissed, his voice low and threatening. I ignored him. I held up my wedding ring for all the guests and all the cameras to see. Miss Hayes, the bracelet on your wrist is a memento of my late mother, Eleanor Vance. It is also a charitable auction item within my and Julian Croft's marital property. I paused, watching the color drain from his face. So, what love are you witnessing with it on your wrist? The silence was deafening. Then the room erupted. Marital property? Mr. Croft is married? To Alara Vance? Then what was Serafina doing? Serafina's hand recoiled, and the bracelet clattered against the microphone stand. Julian's face was a mask of fury. He reached for me. Alara, get down from there. I sidestepped his hand and placed my wedding ring on the auction podium. Mr. Croft, the evening's program isn't over. I looked him in the eye. You didn't bid on a gift to win someone's heart. You bid on the inaugural piece for the Vance Foundation's Project Number 7. Since you seem to have forgotten, allow me to remind everyone. I turned to the audience. The $10 million donation will be fully received by the Vance Foundation. The bracelet, as per the consignment agreement, will be placed in a charitable exhibition. It does not belong to any private love story. Mr. Quinn, the head of the auction house and a witness to the evening's proceedings, stood up from the crowd. He walked onto the stage with a folder and handed the auction agreement to the host. The host's hands trembled as the document was scanned and projected onto the large screens. Donor, Alara Vance. Item origin, memento of Eleanor Vance. Purpose of auction, the Eleanor Vance Women's Medical Aid Project. Special stipulation, the item may not be used for commercial speculation, private declarations of love, or any personal branding unrelated to its charitable purpose. Every line was a slap in Serafina Hayes' face. Tears welled in her eyes. Julian, I didn't know, she cried. You didn't tell me. Julian didn't comfort her. He was staring at me, his eyes filled with shock, fury, and a panic I had never seen in him before. He was finally realizing that this time, I wasn't going to clean up his mess. The rest of the gala descended into chaos. Reporters were snapping photos, guests were whispering, and the Croft Industries PR team scrambled to block cameras. I returned the microphone to the host and walked off stage. As I reached the exit, Julian caught up, his grip on my wrist painfully tight. Alara, do you have any idea what you've just done? Let go, I said, looking at his hand. He didn't. Serafina just came back to the country. Her health isn't good. She thought it was a gift from me and misspoke. Was it necessary to publicly humiliate her? I looked up at him. Your first words aren't to explain why my mother's bracelet was on her wrist, nor are they to ask if I was humiliated tonight. His jaw tightened. The harsh backstage light cast his face in unforgiving angles. We are husband and wife, he said. We can settle this at home. By announcing our marriage in front of everyone, have you considered the impact on Croft Industries? I laughed. So you do remember we're husband and wife. The words struck him into silence. I pulled the wedding ring from my purse and tucked it into his suit pocket. Then remember this. From tonight on, I'm done hiding for you. I turned and left. Behind me, Serafina's tearful voice called out. Julian, I really didn't know she would be this upset. Julian didn't follow me. As I stepped out of the hotel into the cool night air, my phone buzzed. It was his mother. Her text was a single line. Be at the family home tomorrow. You owe Serafina an explanation for tonight. I stared at the words, then let the screen go dark. This time, the person who owed an explanation wasn't me. My assistant, Clara, was waiting in the car. She was the first girl my mother had ever sponsored through her charities and had been with me for years, a woman of few words. But that night, her hand was trembling as she handed me a glass of warm water. Miss Vance, I've had someone back up the security footage from the backstage area. The conversation with Mr. Croft's assistant, and the footage of Mr. Croft signaling for you to be quiet. It's all there. Good, I nodded, taking the water. Make 3 copies. 1 for my lawyer, 1 for the foundation's legal department, and 1 for yourself. Clara looked at me. Are you really taking it this far? I gazed out the window. Julian was just emerging from the hotel, helping Serafina into a car. His black suit jacket was draped over her shoulders. She looked pale and fragile as reporters swarmed them. He shielded her, hiding her face in his chest as he helped her into the car. He didn't push her away. He turned to his PR team and said, "Kill this story. Don't let any press releases go out." I used to see scenes like this and make excuses for him. He's just protecting the company's image. He's just worried Serafina will have a breakdown. He's just emotionally distant. But once you're awake, you realize those excuses are just scabbards you hand to the person holding the knife. The blade has been in you all along. I took out my phone and opened our shared bank account. For 3 years, the Croft family townhouse expenses, his mother's private care facility fees, Julian's personal PR retainers, and even the down payment for Serafina's art gallery before her return, a portion of it all flowed from this account. Nominally, it was a joint household account. In reality, most of the funds came from my personal dividends. I didn't empty it, I just canceled all the automatic payments. The special nursing fees for his mother, the landscaping contract for the townhouse, the retainer for Julian's private driver. Clara watched me. "Will Mr. Croft notice immediately?" "Yes," I said, closing the app. "I want him to." The car had barely pulled away from the hotel when Julian's call came in. I didn't answer. A second call. A third. He kept calling. I silenced my phone. Half an hour later, my lawyer, Arthur Collins, was waiting for me outside my apartment. He wore a crisp gray suit and carried a laptop bag. "I saw the clips from the live stream," he said as I got out of the car. "That was a beautiful checkmate." I let myself into my apartment and kicked off my heels. I want a divorce. Arthur wasn't surprised. He set his laptop on my dining table and opened a folder. "I've been waiting to hear you say that." He pulled up a document titled Marital Dissolution and Asset Division Preliminary Proposal. I stared at him. He shrugged. "Don't look at me like that. I started this the year you wired that $700,000 to renovate the Croft townhouse." I sat down, the humor draining from me, so everyone around me saw it clearly. I was the only one still trying to paint a pretty picture for Julian. Arthur pushed several files toward me. "You and Julian signed a prenuptial agreement. Your personal assets are yours, and any project revenues generated from Vance family connections are covered by separate clauses. If he hasn't committed any major marital misconduct, it would be a straightforward division." He paused. "But tonight's events, combined with some financial issues on Serafina Hayes' side, suggest this might be more than just emotional betrayal." "What did you find?" I asked, looking up. Arthur enlarged a transaction record on his screen. After Serafina Hayes returned, she started a children's art charity. 3 months ago, Croft Industries' cultural division transferred $5 million to it as an advance for a collaborative charity exhibition. 3 months ago. Exactly when I decided to offer my mother's bracelet as the headline auction piece. "Keep digging on that transaction," I said. "Already on it. We're running a compliance and ethics audit," Arthur nodded. "The most important thing for you right now is not to let the Croft family control the narrative." "Are you going to their townhouse tomorrow?" "Yes," I said, closing the file. "They want me to give an explanation. I'd like to hear what kind of explanation they expect me to give." That night, I didn't sleep. Julian's texts came one after another. "Where are you? Pick up the phone. Tonight was messy enough. Don't make Mom worry. Serafina has been crying all night. She says she didn't know the bracelet was your mother's heirloom. Alara, do we really have to make things this ugly between us?" I read the last message and replied with 3 words. "See you tomorrow." The next morning at 10 a.m., I arrived at the Croft family's historic townhouse on the Upper East Side. It was a beautiful brownstone, a symbol of the Croft family's deep-rooted legacy to outsiders. Only I knew that 3 years ago this very house was nearly lost to foreclosure. I had used a trust fund left by my mother to clear the debt. Julian's mother, Beatrice, had held my hands and said, "Alara, you are a blessing to this family." Now, as I walked into the living room, she sat in the main armchair, her face cold as if I owed her a fortune. Serafina sat beside her, her eyes red and swollen. Julian stood by the window, not looking at me. There were 3 teacups on the table. "None for me." Beatrice spoke first, her tone cool, but her posture perfectly composed. "Alara, dear, I've had some tea brought up. I think we need to talk." She gestured to the armchair opposite hers. She poured the tea with a steady hand. "I know last night was difficult. Serafina is young, she's just returned, and perhaps she acted impulsively. But you see, the press is beginning to spin narratives. It's not a good look for Croft Industries, and it certainly doesn't reflect well on the Vance family legacy you now represent." She placed her cup down, the clink of porcelain sharp in the silent room. A brief, elegant statement about a simple scheduling misunderstanding, perhaps issued jointly by the Foundation, would put all this to rest. It shows class. You're a smart woman, Alara. You understand the importance of controlling the narrative, don't you? I looked at her, understanding exactly what she was doing, weaponizing my family's legacy to cover up her son's infidelity. Mrs. Croft, my mother's legacy was worn by another woman to declare her love for my husband. That is not a simple scheduling misunderstanding. Something trivial. My mother's legacy worn by his mistress to declare their love. My husband telling me to shut up. My marriage hidden in the shadows, not even worthy of a public acknowledgement of my pain. And in their mouths, this was something trivial. I took out my phone and opened my banking app. Beatrice was still talking. Also, Serafina will be staying here for a while to recover. As Julian's wife, you should be more magnanimous. This afternoon, you'll accompany her to the gallery. We can't have outsiders thinking the Croft family mistreats her. I tapped the screen. Transaction canceled. The room fell silent. Beatrice frowned. What are you doing? Canceling the automatic transfers, I said, placing my phone on the table. The monthly fees for the townhouse staff, the gardeners, the special care at the private care facility, and your personal nutritionist. It used to all run through my account. As of today, it stopped. Beatrice's face changed. Alara, what is the meaning of this? I looked at her. It means since the Croft family has not mistreated me, then the Croft family's expenses should not be paid by me. Serafina's head snapped up. Julian turned to look at me, his face finally changing. I picked up my bag and stood. I will not be issuing a statement, and I will not be apologizing. I walked to the door and paused. Oh, and if Miss Hayes is staying here, she should remember to pay rent. The lien release documents for this house are still in my name. Beatrice shot up from her seat, enraged. Julian, look at her. Julian's voice was grim. Alara, don't take things too far. I turned back. Julian, I'm not the one who took things too far. I glanced at Serafina. You all are the ones who systematically destroyed every bridge I had. With that, I opened the door and walked out. As I left the townhouse, my phone buzzed. Clara had sent a screenshot. A new press release was already making the rounds online, planted by Serafina's team. The headline was glaring. The $10 million bracelet. A love story years in the making for Julian Croft and Serafina Hayes. I stared at it for a moment, then forwarded the screenshot to Arthur. I replied to Clara, prepare a statement for the Foundation. This time, we don't hold back. The Vance Foundation's statement went live at noon. It was short, only 3 paragraphs. The first explained the origin of the bracelet. The second clarified the terms of the auction agreement. The third reminded any individuals or institutions that misrepresenting the charitable item's purpose as a symbol of love, a personal gift, or in any other way was a violation of that agreement. The statement ended with a partial, high-resolution scan of the agreement itself. It mentioned neither Julian Croft nor Serafina Hayes, but every word landed like a precision strike. That afternoon, Serafina's press release was deleted. But the internet remembers. The comments started to turn. So, Serafina was wearing someone's dead mother's heirloom last night? Julian Croft has a wife and he let his old flame wear that bracelet? Alara Vance's line was epic. I would have flipped the table. The Croft Industries PR team called me 5 times. I didn't answer. Julian came to the Foundation that afternoon. I was in a meeting with the project team, discussing the follow-up plans for the bracelets exhibition. He pushed the door open, and the room went silent. He stood in the doorway, his suit still immaculate, but his eyes held a clear exhaustion. Alara, we need to talk. I glanced at the meeting agenda. You have 10 minutes. His brow furrowed. I had never spoken to him like this. Whenever he came, I would drop everything. I used to think that was love. Now I realize that constant concession only breeds entitlement. I led him to a small, adjacent conference room. The moment the door closed, he said, "Retract the statement." I looked at him. The reason? The internet is already attacking Serafina. She had no idea about the details last night. You're going to destroy her career just as she's starting over. I almost laughed. So, her career is important, but my mother's reputation isn't? That's not what I mean, Julian said, his voice strained. Then what do you mean? I pushed my tablet across the table. On the screen was the press release his team had sent out that morning. I didn't write this. And I'm not the one who framed my mother's legacy as a testament to your love story. Julian glanced at it, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. I'll have her explain. Explain to whom? I asked. To me? Or to the public she misled? He was silent. Julian, I continued, you're still trying to figure out how to minimize the damage, not how to set the record straight. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. Alara, I know you're hurt, but our marriage going public so suddenly, it will affect Croft Industries' stock, our partnerships, the board. Can't you just give me some time? I had been hearing that for 3 years. Wait until the company is stable. Wait until the project is launched. Wait until the board is on our side. Wait for the right time. And in the end, I waited for Serafina Hayes to stand beside him, wearing my mother's bracelet. I placed a document in front of him. Divorce agreement. Arthur had drafted it. You can look this over. Julian's head snapped up. What did you say? A divorce. His face grew even darker than before. All because of a bracelet? I looked at him, and he felt like a stranger. Not because of a bracelet, I said. Because you knew exactly what that bracelet meant to me, and you still let her wear it. His voice tightened. I didn't let her wear it. She asked to see it, and I didn't have time to stop her. You didn't have time to stop her from putting it on, but you had time to stop me from speaking. The small conference room fell silent. Julian stared at me as if for the first time, he was actually hearing my words. I stood up. Take the agreement with you. I need your response in 3 days. He didn't take it. I don't agree. Fine, I nodded. Then we'll go to court. Julian's eyes turned cold. Alara, must you turn our marriage into a legal battle? You're the one who turned our marriage into a joke. I opened the door. Clara was standing outside, holding a file. Her expression was neutral as she saw Julian. Mr. Croft, she said politely. Miss Hayes is here. I frowned. A second later, Serafina appeared at the end of the hallway. She had changed into a pale blue dress and looked even more fragile than before. Behind her were 2 photographers. She saw me and offered a professional, if strained, smile. Alara, thank you for seeing me. I know last night was chaotic. I'm here to clear the air. Serafina addressed Clara calmly. This is my personal photographer. I want this meeting documented as part of my studio's commitment to transparency. She turned back to me, her tone serious. I was not aware of the bracelet's full context. That was my oversight. But rather than let the narrative spiral, I've drafted a proposal for a joint venture between my studio and the Vance Foundation. I believe it's an opportunity for us to reframe this story in a positive light. She looked at Julian, her tone now that of a business partner. Julian, I told you we needed a proactive PR strategy. A formal collaboration shows the public there is no conflict, only a shared passion for the cause. I looked at her proposal, then pushed it back across the desk. Miss Hayes, the Vance Foundation does not operate as a crisis management firm for personal scandals. Your proposal is rejected. Serafina's professional mask slipped, her face paling. Alara, be reasonable. This is good for both of us. It's good for you, I corrected. Clara, please show our guests out and ensure their photographer hasn't captured any confidential foundation documents. Serafina bit her lip, realizing her PR stunt had failed completely. She turned and walked out, her photographer trailing awkwardly behind her. That evening, Serafina was forced to release an apology video. In it, she admitted her imprecise language and acknowledged the bracelet was a charitable item belonging to the Vance Foundation. But she never mentioned Julian was married, and Julian never publicly admitted it. I watched the video and calmly saved it. Arthur texted me, "She's evading the main issue. It doesn't matter. The next step is to audit her studio." I replied, "Proceed." 10 minutes later, Beatrice Croft called me. I picked up and she started screaming without preamble. Alara Vance, are you satisfied now? Serafina has been crying all afternoon. Julian couldn't even focus in his meetings because of this mess. Are you trying to destroy this family? I put the phone on speaker. Mrs. Croft, you're mistaken. What am I mistaken about? She yelled. First, I said, opening my ledger, I am not destroying this family. Second, for the past 3 years, the food this family has eaten, the renovations it has undergone, and the care it has received have mostly been paid for by me. The other end of the line went silent. And finally, I continued, since you're so heartbroken for Serafina Hayes, you can pay for her tears yourself from now on. I hung up. At 10 p.m., the director of the private care facility contacted me. Miss Vance, the automatic payment for Mrs. Croft's special care account failed. Would you like to update the payment method? Contact the Croft family, I said. But it's always been handled by you, the director said, hesitant. As of today, it is not. I put down the phone and looked at a photo of my mother. In it, she was wearing the bracelet, her smile gentle. "Mom," I whispered. I was so foolish before. Outside, a car's headlights swept across my window. Julian's car was parked downstairs. He didn't come up, and I didn't go down. This was the first night he had ever waited for me, and the first night my heart did not soften. The next morning, the entrance to the foundation was swarmed with reporters. Serafina's half-hearted apology video hadn't quelled the storm. It had only fueled more questions. Why did Julian Croft bid on Alara Vance's mother's bracelet? What was the real relationship between them? Had Serafina Hayes interfered in a marriage? The Croft PR team had worked all night, but they couldn't contain it, because the video from the gala had gone viral. The clip of Julian signaling for me to stay silent was crystal clear. Someone had screenshotted it with the caption, "A man isn't afraid of making a mistake. He's afraid of his wife speaking up when he does." I sat in my office and read through the trending topics, making no comment. Clara knocked and entered. "Miss Vance," Serafina Hayes' agent, contacted the foundation. "They want to co-host a clarification live stream with us." "Clarify what?" I asked, looking up. "That Miss Hayes is willing to join the Vance Women's Medical Project as a volunteer, to make up for the misunderstanding with practical action." I laughed. "She's certainly good at finding an exit strategy." "I've already refused," Clara frowned. "But they said Mr. Croft has already agreed." The pen in my hand stopped moving. "Julian agreed?" Clara handed me an email. The header read, "Croft Industries, Department of Philanthropic Partnerships." The content was a formal recommendation that the Vance Foundation collaborate with Serafina Hayes' studio on the charity exhibition to mitigate negative press and restore public image. The approval signature at the bottom was Julian Croft's. I stared at his name, the absurdity of it all washing over me. He still thought the Vance Foundation was a resource he could deploy at will. I picked up my phone and dialed his number. He answered quickly. "Alara." I dispensed with pleasantries. "Did you approve Serafina's involvement with the Vance project?" He was silent for a second. "It was just a suggestion. She's under a lot of public pressure right now and needs a positive outlet. The Vance Foundation is not her personal whitewashing service." "Don't make it sound so ugly," he said, his voice lowering. "Serafina made a mistake, but her intentions weren't malicious. Having her participate in the project would generate publicity for the foundation as well." I was so angry, I laughed. "Julian, you used my mother's heirloom as a prop for your love story, and now you want to use my mother's foundation as a tool to clean up your mistress's reputation?" The line went quiet. "Have you ever," I continued, "for one single moment, thought of me and my mother as people who deserve respect?" "That's not what I meant," he said stiffly. "Then withdraw the email. Retracting it now would make Croft Industries look indecisive." "That's your problem." I hung up and immediately had our legal team send a formal notice. All collaborative projects between the Vance Foundation and Croft Industries' philanthropic department were to be suspended, effective immediately. The reason cited, unilateral introduction of an unvetted third party by Croft Industries, in violation of project independence protocols. At 2 p.m., Serafina Hayes came to the foundation anyway. This time, she didn't bring reporters, only an assistant. She stood at my office door, her posture meek. "Alara, can I talk to you alone?" "No," I said, not looking up from my work. Her face fell. "I know you hate me. But Julian and I, it's not what you think. We've known each other for years. He was just looking out for me because I'm having a hard time readjusting." I kept my eyes on my document. "Serafina, you don't need to explain to me how many years you've known each other." She bit her lip. "I just want you to know, Julian didn't mean to hurt you. He has a strong sense of duty. Maybe when he married you, there were family pressures involved. Him not making it public doesn't mean he doesn't respect you." I looked up at her. Finally, a glimmer of her true intention. Not guilt, but a test. She wanted to tell me Julian didn't marry me for love. She wanted to humiliate me, to make me admit I was nothing more than a strategic choice. I nodded. "You're right." Serafina froze. "So I'm getting a divorce," I said, "and giving him back to his true love." A flash of triumph lit her eyes before she quickly suppressed it. "Alara, don't say that out of anger. I don't want to ruin your marriage. Whether you want to or not is irrelevant." I pushed an application form across the desk. "You wanted to join the project, right? Fill this out according to procedure. Personal resume, funding sources, proof of past charitable projects, tax compliance certificates. Don't leave anything out." Serafina stared at the form, her expression shifting. "I need all this just to be a volunteer?" "A regular volunteer doesn't," I said, looking at her. But if you want to be a public-facing partner, you absolutely do. After a long silence, she picked up a pen. I watched as she filled in the past charitable projects section with Children's Art Healing Charity Exhibition. Perfect. She wrote it herself. Her fingers tightened as she signed her name. I had Clara make a copy and file it away. After Serafina left, Clara immediately placed the form in our evidence folder. Miss Vance. She listed that project. I know, I nodded. Now, trace the project's funding. We're already on it, Clara said in a low voice. There's a $5 million deposit in her studio's account, but less than $200,000 was actually spent on children's charity activities. And the rest? $1.8 million went to gallery renovations, $900,000 to overseas rent, and another large sum was transferred to her personal account. Is the evidence chain solid? We're still missing invoices and approval emails. Keep going. That evening, Julian finally came to find me. This time, he didn't enter the foundation. He waited in the parking garage. As I walked to my car, he stood by its side, holding the divorce agreement. I won't sign this. I opened my car door. Then I'll see you in court. He blocked the door. Alara, what is it you want? A public title? An apology? For me to cut off all contact with Serafina? I looked up at him. I want a divorce. He looked at me as if he didn't understand the words. We haven't reached that point. Then what point would that be? I asked him. I admit I handled last night poorly, he said through gritted teeth. But you can't deny that for the past 3 years I have not mistreated you. I almost laughed out loud. Your definition of not mistreating me was making me your invisible wife, having me take care of your family, letting me maintain your business connections, and then pushing me aside the moment your old flame returned? Julian's face tightened. Serafina and I are not what you think. I don't care what you are, I said, moving around him. Julian, I only care about what you've done. He grabbed my car door. You weren't like this before. That stopped me. I turned to him. What was I like before? He didn't answer. I answered for him. Before, I would endure it. I would wait. I would make excuses for you. The moment you frowned, I would be the first to apologize. You said Croft Industries was at a critical point, so I put my own feelings last. I pried his fingers off my car, one by one. Unfortunately, that Alara Vance's patience ran out on stage last night. I got in my car and shut the door. As I drove away, I saw Julian in the rearview mirror, standing motionless. His figure grew smaller and smaller. My phone vibrated. A message from Arthur. The ex-assistant from Serafina's studio is willing to testify about the charity funds. I replied, set up a meeting. A second later, another message from Arthur arrived. And Julian may have signed off on the approval. I stared at the screen as the city lights blurred past the window. So this betrayal was never just about a bracelet. The former assistant's name was Frances. We met at Arthur's law firm. Frances arrived wearing a mask, and the first thing she said was, I don't want any trouble. I'm just telling you what I know. Arthur placed a recorder on the table. You have the right not to speak. But if you do, we will protect you. Frances looked at me. Miss Vance, I saw the video from the gala. That bracelet. I've seen it before, on Serafina's phone. My brow furrowed. When? A week before the gala, Frances said. She sent a photo of the bracelet to a friend and said, Julian will get this for me, one way or another. Where did she get the photo? Arthur asked. Frances shook her head. I don't know. But I once overheard her on the phone with Mr. Croft's assistant, asking if the auction procedure could be changed, if she could be the one to go on stage and present it. The assistant said the program was set by the Vance Foundation and was difficult to change. I gripped my cup. So it wasn't a spontaneous misunderstanding. Serafina had been targeting that bracelet all along. And the children's art charity funds? Frances continued. After the $5 million was transferred, Serafina said it was Croft money, and it would be a waste not to spend it. She said building a real charity was too slow. It was better to build up her public image first. She produced a flash drive. This has some of the chat logs and expense reports. I backed them up before I quit. I was just afraid she'd try to blame me for it later. Arthur took the drive. Why are you willing to come forward now? I asked. Frances was silent for a few seconds. Because she's already started to blame me. She showed me her phone. On the screen was a message from Serafina's internal team chat. Serafina had written, if anyone asks about the charity funds, just say Frances was in charge of that. The records are incomplete because she left. Frances gave a bitter laugh. her eyes red. I worked for her for 3 years. I cleaned up so many of her messes. But she never treated any of us like people. I handed her a business card. From now on, you'll be in contact with Mr. Collins. Your testimony will not be wasted. After Francis left, Arthur plugged the flash drive into his computer. The chat logs appeared. A conversation between Serafina and Julian's assistant. Serafina: once Julian wins the bid, can I wear it for a bit? The media loves this kind of visual. Assistant: Miss Vance's side has a very strict schedule. Assistant: Mr. Croft said he'll see what he can do at the time. Serafina: Alara won't mind, will she? She's always been so private about the marriage. Assistant: Mr. Croft will handle it. I stared at that last line. Mr. Croft will handle it. A dull ache spread through my chest. It wasn't that he didn't know. He just thought he could handle me. Arthur closed the window, his tone cold. This is enough to prove the gala wasn't a simple misunderstanding. Keep organizing the evidence. I nodded. That afternoon, Croft Industries held an emergency board meeting. Julian didn't contact me, but a member of his board did. An older shareholder named Mr. Davis called me, his tone polite. Miss Vance, Julian is young. He's mishandled some personal matters. But the partnership between Croft Industries and the Vance family has lasted for years. It shouldn't be affected by a small private issue. Mr. Davis, I asked, do you believe this is a private issue? He paused. At the very least, it shouldn't cause a suspension of our charitable projects. Croft Industries' philanthropy department violated our agreement by introducing an unvetted third party and bypassing approval protocols. That is a public matter. Miss Vance, surely we can discuss this. Fine, I said. Have Croft Industries publicly withdraw all recommendations for Serafina Hayes' charitable collaborations and cooperate fully with the Vance Foundation's special audit. Mr. Davis went silent. That would affect the company's reputation. And you calling me? I laughed coldly. Were you hoping to affect mine? He had no reply. I hung up. Clara knocked and entered. Miss Vance, Croft Industries just issued a supplemental project report. They're trying to prove that the use of funds by Serafina Hayes' studio was compliant. I took the file and read a few lines. It listed numerous expenses: children's art classes, charity art supplies, exhibition construction, psychological counseling. Each item looked legitimate. But next to it, I mentally placed the real invoices. The charity art supplies were for Serafina's personal art show. The psychological counseling was for her private image consultant. The exhibition construction was the renovation of her downtown gallery. I closed the file. Who signed off on this report? Mr. Croft, Clara said softly. This time, I wasn't surprised. Julian was still trying to patch the holes. He thought that if he could just fill in the gaps, things would go back to the way they were. He didn't know that some things, once broken, will always leak. At 7 p.m., I returned to our marital home. It was a place I had once poured my heart into, decorating every corner. I had chosen the sofa, the dining table, even the lamp in the entryway. But Julian rarely came back. He was always busy. After Serafina returned, he suddenly had time to go to exhibits, have dinner, and visit her in the hospital. I opened the walk-in closet and began to pack. I didn't have many clothes here. There were very few traces of me in this house to begin with. Halfway through, the door opened. Julian was standing there. He saw the suitcase, and his face hardened. You're moving out. Yes. He walked in and grabbed my arm. Alara, stop this. Have you said that line enough? I shook him off. He looked at me, his eyes bloodshot. You suspended the partnerships. You cut off the family's finances. And now you're moving out. You've had this all planned, haven't you? Yes, I said, folding a blouse. He froze. Because I'm finally done with last-minute concessions. Julian stared at me. I will handle the situation with Serafina, and I will get the bracelet back. If you want to go public, we can go public. If you want a wedding, we can have a wedding. If he had said this before, I might have been moved to tears. But now, it was just too late. Go public with what? I asked. He frowned. Go public with the wife you've hidden for 3 years? Go public with how you told that wife to shut up while your mistress wore her mother's heirloom? Go public with how you're falsifying charity records for that same mistress? Julian's face turned ashen. You've been investigating me. I'm investigating my foundation's projects, I said, zipping my suitcase. Unfortunately, you were in the way. His voice turned cold. You can't use those documents. Are you scared? I looked at him. His jaw was tight. I wheeled my suitcase toward the door. Alara, do you have any idea what this will do to the stock price on Monday morning? This isn't a game, he hissed, his voice laced with panic. I stopped. Am I destroying you? Or did you dip your own hands where they didn't belong? He didn't answer. I opened the door. Serafina Hayes was standing on the other side. She hadn't expected me to open the door so suddenly, and she was holding a takeout bag from his favorite high-end Italian restaurant. She saw my suitcase, and a flicker of delight crossed her face before she quickly masked it with surprise. Alara, I didn't know you were here. I laughed and gestured for her to enter. I'm making room for you. You're misunderstanding, she said, her face pale. I just heard Julian hadn't eaten and brought him some dinner. I looked at Julian. She has a key to this place. Julian's brow furrowed. Serafina dropped something off before. My assistant gave her a spare card. I laughed again. So I had been gone for only a few days, and she could already come and go as she pleased from my marital home. Serafina stammered. It's not what you think. I was just worried Julian hadn't eaten. No need to explain, I interrupted. I took another key card from my bag and placed it on the entryway cabinet. I'll leave my access card as well. Serafina bit her lip, looking deeply wronged. Julian looked at me, his voice tight with anger. Do you have to be like this? What's the alternative? I asked. Stay and watch her bring you soup every day? He was silent. Serafina's tears started to fall. Alara, I really didn't mean to replace you. Of course you didn't mean to, I said, looking at her. She froze. You've been actively doing it all along. Serafina's face went white as a sheet. I walked past her and left. This time, no one followed. That night, Arthur told me the court had set a date for mediation. At the same time, the regulatory authorities had formally accepted the materials submitted by the Vance Foundation. The investigation into the financial issues of Serafina Hayes' studio had begun. Croft Industries' philanthropic department was also required to cooperate. Finally, things were moving from public opinion to legal procedure. This was what I wanted. Arguments couldn't win, tears couldn't win, only evidence could force people to face reality. But the Croft family wouldn't give up so easily. The next day, Beatrice Croft ambushed me at my new apartment. When I opened the door, she stepped into my path. Alara Vance, have you caused enough trouble? I stood by the door, not offering her a seat or a drink. She glanced around the apartment with disdain. It's better than living in a marital home that anyone can walk into, I said. Her face stiffened. Don't bring Serafina into this. She and Julian grew up together. Their bond is different. You're the wife. Can't you be more magnanimous? No. She was stunned by my quick reply. You? I walked to the table and pulled out a stack of receipts. Mrs. Croft, since you're here, this is a detailed list of the expenses I've paid for the Croft family over the past 3 years. She frowned. What's the meaning of this? No meaning, I said, pushing the bills toward her. Just a reminder not to say the Croft family has not mistreated me. She looked through a few pages, her face growing paler and paler. Townhouse renovation. $3.2 million. Private facility care. $1.8 million. Croft family entertainment expenses. $760,000. Julian Croft's personal PR fees. $2.4 million. There were also several other expenses for her personal jewelry and supplements. She slammed the folder shut. To calculate these things between a husband and wife. Aren't you ashamed? I looked at her. Mrs. Croft, what's shameful is that I was paying to support the Croft family while you were telling me to apologize to Serafina Hayes. Her face flushed. Julian will never agree to a divorce. Then the court will decide. She stood up, her voice shrill. You'll regret this. Without the Croft family, who do you think you are? I opened the door. I'm Alara Vance, I said, looking her in the eye. And I was Alara Vance long before I married into your family. Beatrice left, trembling with rage. After the door closed, I leaned against it and took a deep breath. My phone rang. Clara's voice was urgent. Miss Vance, Croft Industries, has sent out invitations for their anniversary gala. Does this concern me? On the guest list, Serafina Hayes is listed as Mr. Croft's +1. I closed my eyes. And, Clara said in a low voice, Beatrice Croft has been telling people she will be making an announcement at the gala, formally welcoming Serafina into the family. I laughed. They really were determined to self-destruct. Get me a dress, I said. I'm going to that gala. On the night of the Croft Industries anniversary gala, the hotel was a blaze of lights. When I arrived, The red carpet was already packed with reporters. Beatrice had clearly orchestrated this. Serafina, in a champagne-colored gown, stood by Julian's side at the step and repeat, his hand on her arm. On her wrist was another diamond bracelet, a replica of my mother's. The color, the texture, the style, it was an almost perfect copy. Beatrice stood nearby, beaming. A reporter asked, "Miss Hayes, in what capacity are you attending the gala tonight?" Serafina blushed and looked down. "Just as a friend." Beatrice immediately interjected. "Serafina and Julian grew up together. Our families are very close. She's been through so much abroad, and now that she's back, of course we have to take care of her." Someone else shouted, "What about Alara Vance? The internet says she and Mr. Croft are married." Beatrice's smile widened. "You can't believe everything you read online. As for Julian's marriage, the Croft family will give everyone a proper explanation." The implication was clear. They were going to deny my existence. Julian looked uneasy. "Mom," he said in a low voice. But Beatrice didn't stop. She took Serafina's hand. "I've always believed the person who stands by Julian's side should understand him, support him, and be one with the Croft family." Tears welled in Serafina's eyes. She looked at Julian and whispered, "Aunt Beatrice, please don't say that. Alara will be upset." Beatrice scoffed. "Happy or not, the Croft family can't let her run wild forever." It was at that moment that I walked in. I wore a simple black gown, my hair up. No jewelry except for the file folder in my hand. The reporters saw me and immediately swarmed. "Miss Vance is here. Miss Vance, what is your relationship with Mr. Croft? Will the Croft family be addressing the secret marriage rumors tonight?" Julian's head snapped toward me. He let go of Serafina and walked in my direction. "What are you doing here?" I smiled. "It's the Croft Industries anniversary gala. Am I not welcome?" "There are a lot of people here tonight," he said in a low voice. "Don't make a scene." I looked at him. "You're all prepared to write me out of the story, and you're worried about me making a scene?" Julian's face stiffened. Serafina walked over, her voice trembling. "Alara, you've misunderstood. Aunt Beatrice didn't mean it that way." I glanced at her wrist. The replica is well made. She instinctively hid her hand behind her back. The reporter's cameras flashed. Beatrice marched over, her face furious. "Alara Vance, do you have any manners? This is the company's anniversary, not a place for you to throw a tantrum." "Perfect," I nodded. "Since this is the Croft Industries anniversary gala, let's clear a few things up here." Julian tried to block my way. "Alara." I sidestepped him and walked directly onto the stage. The host froze. Beatrice shouted, "Stop her," but it was too late. I took the microphone. "Good evening. I am Alara Vance." The room fell silent. Many of you were present at the Vance Foundation Gala recently. There seems to have been some confusion about the evening's purpose. My gaze found Julian's in the crowd. My mother's bracelet is a symbol of her legacy, helping women find their own voice. It is not a gift, nor is it a token of affection. Some things, once they carry a higher purpose, should never be used for trivial, personal displays. I placed the microphone down. "Happy anniversary, Croft Industries." I walked off the stage to a stunned, dead silence. No evidence, no marriage certificate, just an ice-cold warning. After my speech, I walked out of the ballroom. Julian followed me out into the lobby. "Alara." I didn't stop. He grabbed my arm, and for the first time, there was real panic in his voice. "I didn't know she said those things." I looked at him. "There are a lot of things you don't know." I slowly pulled my arm free. "But every single humiliation I suffered, you were there to witness." His hand was left hanging in the air. Behind us, Serafina was being mobbed by reporters. Beatrice was being confronted by furious shareholders. The scene was utter chaos. I walked out of the hotel. The night air was cool and cleansing. Arthur caught up and draped his jacket over my shoulders. The Croft family is about to implode. I looked out at the city lights. "Good," I said. "They've had it easy for too long." The real attack began the next morning. At 9 a.m. sharp, every board member of Croft Industries received an email from Arthur Collins's law firm. It announced that the Vance Foundation was immediately suspending all philanthropic partnerships, pending an independent audit into transparency and compliance, citing concerns arising from recent events. Simultaneously, Julian's own lawyer received a brief legal notice. "Our client, Mrs. Alara Vance, Croft, is proceeding with a petition for divorce." Within the hour, bankers began calling Julian. Croft Industries' loan covenants were tied to the prestige of its partnership with the Vance Foundation. The stock began to tremble in pre-market trading. My war wasn't fought on a stage with spotlights. It was fought in boardrooms, on stock tickers, and in cold legal emails. That was where Julian would truly feel the blow. After the anniversary gala, Serafina Hayes's downfall was swift and total. Her gallery's exhibition was suspended. Her studio's social media accounts were flooded with negative comments, and the brands that had once praised her pure artistry deleted their endorsements overnight. The day after the regulatory authorities launched their formal investigation, Frances submitted her official testimony. Serafina made one last attempt to save herself, posting a long, rambling letter online about her history with depression, her struggles abroad, and how she was just an innocent artist caught in a tycoon's marital dispute, blaming her team for all the financial misunderstandings. But this time, no one was buying it. Arthur released a timeline of events, all legally verified. Serafina obtaining a photo of the bracelet a week before the gala, her unauthorized speech declaring her love, her team's subsequent press release, the forged authorization for her exhibition, and the clear audit trail of charity funds being diverted to her personal gallery and overseas accounts. Each point was backed by evidence. Tears, it turned out, were no longer a valid currency. On the day of the hearing, I wasn't in the audience. I was seated at the main table as the head of the Vance Foundation. Serafina sat opposite me, looking haggard, flanked by her lawyer. Julian was there too, representing Croft Industries, seated to the side. Our eyes met for a moment across the long table. His were filled with unspoken words. I looked away. The auditor went through the expenses, item by item. The children's art classes had only 6 attendees. The charity art supplies invoices matched the receipts for her gallery's decorative materials. The psychological healing fees were paid to her personal image consultant. Serafina's lawyer kept trying to argue that she was not a financial expert and that these matters were handled by her assistant. When Frances was called in to testify, Serafina's head snapped up. She had likely expected Frances to be her scapegoat, not her accuser. Frances's voice was steady. I was responsible for execution, but all major expenditures were personally approved by Serafina Hayes. She submitted chat logs, reimbursement requests, and voice notes. When one of the voice notes was played, Serafina's face went white. Her own voice filled the room, sharp and clear. The charity project is just a front. Get the gallery up and running first. With Croft and Vance backing, no one will look too closely. The room was chillingly silent. Across the table, the veins in Julian's hands stood out. Serafina finally broke down, not with quiet sobs, but with racking, hysterical cries. I just wanted to make it. I was abroad for so many years, no one knows how hard it was. Julian promised he would help me. I thought I could fix all of this later. The auditor remained impassive. Please answer the question. Do you confirm that these funds were used for your personal gallery renovation? Serafina's crying stopped for a second. She looked at Julian. Julian, say something. Help me. Julian didn't move. It was the first time he hadn't immediately rushed to her defense. Serafina stared at him in disbelief. You're not going to help me? Julian's voice was low and hoarse. Serafina, where did the money go? Just tell the truth. She looked as if he had slapped her. Now you blame me? Weren't you the one who promised me resources? Weren't you the one who told me I had nothing to fear when I came back? Weren't you the one who told me to trust you? Julian closed his eyes. I didn't tell you to forge a signature. Serafina laughed, a sharp, ugly sound, though tears were still on her face. Of course you didn't have to say it out loud. You just had to stand there, and I knew you would protect me. Alara Vance put up with you for 3 years. She can endure anything. Isn't that what you've always thought? With that, everyone in the room turned to look at Julian. His face was a deathly white. Serafina had finally ripped off her mask of fragility. What are you pretending to be so righteous about now? Without the confidence you gave me, would I have dared? I sat quietly, saying nothing. This was more effective than anything I could have said. Julian was hearing firsthand how the special treatment he had given had become the very testimony that condemned him. After the hearing, Serafina was taken for further questioning. As she passed me, she paused. There were no more tears in her eyes, only hatred. Alara Vance, you won. I looked at her. You're mistaken. She frowned. I didn't win you, I said. I just took back what was mine. Her face went slack as she was led away. Julian was waiting for me by the entrance. It was pouring rain. He stood under the awning, without an umbrella. When he saw me, he took a step forward. Alara. I stopped. Arthur discreetly moved to the side, but not too far. Julian looked at me, his eyes filled with exhaustion. I'm sorry. It was the first time he had said those 3 words with sincerity. Not to end a fight, not to make me see the bigger picture, but a true, soul-deep apology. But I no longer needed it. For which part? I asked. He froze. For the 3 years of a secret marriage? I asked. For letting me take care of your family? For siding with Serafina time and again after she returned? For the bracelet? For telling me to be quiet? Or for trying to cover up her fraudulent project report? Julian's lips moved, but no answer came. You see, I said softly, there are too many things to be sorry for. The sound of the rain covered his ragged breathing. I will make it up to you, he said. Don't bother. Elara? Julian, I interrupted. Your realization doesn't mean I still have to accept it. His eyes reddened. Is there really no chance for us? If he had asked me that question 6 months ago, I might have felt pain, hesitated, looked for one last reason to stay. But now, all I felt was a sense of lightness. No, I said. He stood in the rain, frozen by that single word. I opened my umbrella and walked down the steps. What if I had made our marriage public from the start? He called after me. What if, that night, I hadn't let her wear the bracelet? I paused for a moment, but I didn't turn back. Julian, there are no what-ifs in life. I walked into the rain. Arthur fell into step beside me. Are you okay? He asked quietly. I'm fine, I nodded. I'm really fine. That night, I had the first truly peaceful sleep I'd had in a long time. I wasn't waiting for a call, wondering where he was, or agonizing over a cold text message. The next morning, sunlight streamed through my window. A message from Clara came in. Miss Vance, the bracelet has been returned from the auction house's vault. The restorers say there is no damage to the piece itself. I stared at the words, and my eyes suddenly welled up. It was a relief to know that some things, even after being misused, misunderstood, and woven into the wrong story, could be reclaimed, cleaned, and returned to their rightful place. They were still themselves, and so was I. On the day of our court-ordered mediation, Julian arrived early. When I entered the mediation room, he was standing by the window, holding my wedding ring. The same one I had put in his suit pocket on the night of the gala. He had polished it until it gleamed. I glanced at it once, and then looked away. The mediator asked us to state our basic demands. A divorce, I said. Asset division according to the prenuptial and supplementary agreements. A full audit of the joint household account, with any overpayments to be returned. All funds I advanced for Croft Industries or the Croft family's personal expenses that do not fall under necessary joint marital living expenses are to be legally reimbursed. Julian looked at me. He probably hadn't expected me to settle accounts with his entire family. The mediator asked him, Mr. Croft, do you agree to the divorce? He was silent. I didn't rush him. I used to fear silence, awkwardness, his displeasure. Now I understood that silence could also be a boundary. After a long time, Julian said, I do not agree. The mediator made a note. I nodded. Then we proceed to litigation. Julian looked at me, his voice low and strained. Elara, can we talk alone for 5 minutes? The mediator looked at me. I can, I said. The room emptied. Julian placed the ring on the table. These past few days, I've been thinking about the day we got married. I didn't speak. You were wearing a white blouse, he said. When we came out with the certificates, you asked me when we would have the wedding. I said, when Croft Industries is stable. I remember the sunlight was beautiful that day. I remembered waiting for him outside the city clerk's office, holding our marriage license, waiting for him to take my hand. He took a business call instead. I stood to the side and told myself, it's okay, he's busy. For years I kept telling myself it was okay. Julian's voice was hoarse. I thought you would always be there. That sentence was so cruel because it was so true. It wasn't that he didn't know my worth. He was just so sure of it, so certain of my love for him, so confident that I would tolerate anything. He was sure that no matter who he sided with, a small explanation was all it would take for me to stay. And that's why, I said, you dared to put me last, time and time again. His throat moved. I was wrong. I shook my head. Julian, your mistake wasn't that you didn't love me. His eyes flickered. Your mistake was that you didn't love me, but you enjoyed the benefits of my wifely devotion. You couldn't let go of Serafina, but you couldn't let go of the stability I brought you either. You wanted her emotional validation, and you wanted my loyalty and resources. His hands slowly clenched into fists. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I asked. Were you willing to make me public? Were you willing to push Serafina away the first time she crossed a line? Were you willing to stand by me when your mother demanded I apologize? Were you willing to support a full investigation the moment you found out she forged my signature? He couldn't answer a single question. I smiled faintly. You see? The answer is clear. Julian's eyes were red. I can change. I don't need you to anymore. The words came out without pain, only a sense of finality. Julian picked up the ring, his voice almost breaking. Then what were these 3 years to you? I thought for a moment. The tuition I paid for a lesson I chose to learn. He looked as if I had physically struck him. I stood up. Julian, I won't deny that I loved you. But loving you once doesn't mean I have to keep paying for that mistake forever. I walked to the door. Serafina has been formally indicted, he said suddenly. I paused. The responsible parties at Croft Industries' philanthropic department have been suspended, he continued. I will personally cooperate with the audit of all related projects. And I will handle things with my family. The money you advanced will be repaid. I turned back. Thank you. Just thank you. No emotion, no turning back. Julian understood. His face grew even paler. The mediation failed. The lawsuit proceeded. With clear evidence and a solid prenuptial agreement, Julian had little room to delay. 2 months later, the judgment was issued. The divorce was granted. Assets were divided as per the agreement. I recovered a portion of the funds I had advanced. The partnership between the Vance Foundation and Croft Industries was suspended, and their philanthropic arm was placed under special review. Serafina Hayes was held legally accountable for forgery and embezzlement of charitable funds. Her gallery was shut down, and her persona as an artist was shattered. Beatrice came to see me one more time. She was no longer the imperious matriarch. She stood downstairs from the foundation, her hair slightly disheveled. Alara, I know I was harsh before. Please don't hold it against me. I looked at her. Mrs. Croft, we no longer have that kind of relationship. Her face stiffened. But you and Julian were married. He's been in a terrible state lately. The townhouse is a mess. Can't you go back and see him? No, I said. Her eyes reddened. Are you really so heartless? I wasn't angry. I just found it ironic. When they hurt me, they told me to be magnanimous. When I left, they called me heartless. Mrs. Croft, I said, the reason you feel this is so difficult now is because for years, someone else was carrying that difficulty for you. She froze. From now on, you'll have to carry it yourself. I turned and walked into the foundation building. I heard her suppressed sobs behind me, but I didn't turn back. Some people don't fail to see your sacrifices. They just hope you'll keep making them forever. The day the divorce was finalized, I went to a coffee shop near the city clerk's office. Not for nostalgia. 3 years ago, after we got our license, Julian and I had planned to have a celebratory lunch there. He got called into a meeting. I sat alone until evening. I couldn't finish a slice of cake. Today, I ordered the same one. Just as I sat down, Julian arrived. He looked like he had run all the way, his breathing uneven. Alara, is something wrong? I asked. He sat across from me and pushed a box forward. Inside was the wedding ring. I know it's too late, he said, but I wanted to return this to you. I didn't take it. That's something for you to deal with. Julian's eyes were painfully red. This whole time, I keep thinking, if only. That night, I hadn't told you to be quiet. I picked up my fork and cut a small piece of cake. You're still thinking about that one night. He froze. But I didn't leave you just because of that one night, I said. That night was just the match. The fire was fueled by the kindling you'd been piling up for 3 years. Julian lowered his head. I know, he said softly. I just regret knowing it too late. I finished my bite of cake. It was sweet. The thing I couldn't finish 3 years ago, I finally could today. I stood up. Julian, take care. He looked up at me. Can we see each other again? I thought for a moment. If it's not necessary, no. The light in his eyes died completely. I picked up my bag and walked out of the coffee shop. The sun was bright. I didn't look back. 6 months later, the Eleanor Vance Women's Medical Aid Project officially launched. The opening ceremony for the exhibition was held at my mother's favorite art museum. The bracelet rested in a climate-controlled display case. Under the lights, its flawless diamonds sparkled, carrying a quiet and gentle elegance. The plaque next to the case didn't mention Julian Croft or the auction price. It just had 3 lines. An heirloom of the late Eleanor Vance. donated and exhibited by her daughter Alara Vance. In support of the medical aid project for women in crisis, I stood before the display for a long time. Clara approached me. "Miss Vance, the guests have all arrived." "Let's go," I nodded. This time, I didn't stay behind the scenes. I walked onto the stage in a cream-colored pantsuit. The audience was filled with people, aid recipients, doctors, lawyers, volunteers, donors, and even some who had witnessed my humiliation at the charity gala. The way they looked at me was different now. Then, they saw a high society drama. Now, they saw the head of the Vance Foundation. "Many of you know of this bracelet because of the controversy 6 months ago," I began, and the room grew quiet. I didn't avoid it. It was misunderstood, misused, and placed in a story that did not belong to it. I glanced at the display case. But what it truly represents was never someone's delayed love, but the courage a mother left to her daughter. A few people began to clap softly. My mother, Eleanor Vance, often used to say when she was doing her charity work, "Helping someone isn't about walking for them, but about giving them the strength to stand up on their own." My voice was steady. For the past 6 months, I have been learning to do just that. Some in the audience had tears in their eyes. I didn't mention Julian or Serafina. They were no longer important. Today, I announced, the Eleanor Vance Women's Medical Aid Project is officially launched. The first phase of funding will be used to help 30 women whose medical treatments have been delayed due to domestic oppression, economic control, or marital distress. The screen behind me showed the project details: medical aid, legal counseling, temporary housing, career support. These weren't just slogans. They were the pillars of the new structure I had built, piece by piece. Clara was watching me from the audience, her eyes bright. Arthur, in the front row, raised his coffee cup in a small toast. I smiled. In the very back row, there was a familiar figure. Julian. He was wearing a dark suit, looking thinner than before. He didn't come forward or cause a disturbance. He just stood quietly at the back of the crowd, watching me on the stage. I saw him, but I didn't falter. After my speech, there was a round of applause. I walked off the stage and shook hands with a representative of the aid recipients. She was a woman in her 40s, her hands rough, but her eyes were bright. She held my hand and said, "Miss Vance, thank you. I used to think I couldn't live if I left him. Now I know that's not true." My eyes grew warm. "It's not," I said. "You'll live even better." When the exhibition was ending, Julian finally approached. He stopped about 3 steps away from me. It was a distance he had now learned to keep. "The project is wonderful," he said. "Thank you," I nodded. He looked at the bracelet in the display case. "It's back where it belongs." "Yes." We stood in silence for a moment. "I finally understood," he said in a low voice. "That night, you said what you said not to embarrass me." I looked at him. "I said it to let everyone know it was not your love token." He gave a bitter smile. "And to let me know you were not someone I could keep hidden forever." I didn't answer. I took an envelope from my pocket. "This is the receipt for the final reimbursement payment. It's been transferred to your designated account. I've also settled things with the Croft family estate. No one will be bothering you anymore." He took the envelope. "Good." He looked at me, the ache still visible in his eyes. "Alara, I'm not asking for your forgiveness." "Then don't," I said. He flinched, then managed a small, pained smile. "You still say it like it is." "I just didn't before." He looked up at me. "Julian," I continued, "it wasn't that I didn't understand or that it didn't hurt before. I just wanted so desperately to make a life work." His eyes reddened. "I know. But now," I said, "I just want to make my own life work." When I said that, my heart was calm. Julian nodded. "You will." He didn't say anything more. Before he turned to leave, he glanced one last time at the bracelet, and then at me. This time, he didn't look back. I stood in the center of the exhibition hall, watching his figure disappear into the crowd outside. There was no pain, no triumphant satisfaction, just a sense that my life, finally extracted from a toxic relationship, was back in my own hands. Arthur came over. "It's over." I smiled. "Yes, it's over." Clara ran up with a new project file. "Miss Vance, the next round of recipient nominations needs your approval, and several partner hospitals want to discuss long-term collaborations." I took the file. The papers were thick, the tasks many, but this time I didn't feel tired. Because this work wasn't to please anyone, to maintain someone else's image, or to prove I was worthy of being loved. It belonged to me. It was the path I wanted to walk. That night, before the museum closed, I returned to the bracelet one last time. The lights were dimming. The brilliant clarity of the diamonds in the case remained warm and lustrous, catching the light like a constellation. I thought of my mother. I remembered her stroking my hair and saying, "Alara, the most dangerous thing in a woman's life isn't meeting the wrong person. It's meeting the wrong person and not being willing to leave." I didn't understand then. I do now. I placed my hand gently on the glass of the display case. "Mom, I'm out." My reflection in the glass was calm, clear, and free. Behind me, there was no Julian Croft, no Serafina Hayes, no chorus of voices from the Croft family weighing me down. There was only me. I turned and walked out of the exhibition hall. The night was dark, but the city was bright with lights. The driver asked, "Miss Vance? Home?" I looked out the window and smiled. Home. This time, the home I was referring to was no longer a position given to me by a man, but the direction I had chosen for myself.